Hey, this is Evan Marquette, dating coach for smart, strong, successful women, your personal trainer for love. Welcome back to the Love You podcast. Today's episode is going to be a barn burner. We don't do enough barn burning references these days, I don't think, so this one's going to be a barn burner, by which I mean it'll probably be a little controversial, even though I never think anything I say is controversial. Before we get into that, I'm in good spirits today. I had a funny incident where I got locked out of the house by my wife. It wasn't her fault. I walked the dog, kids closed the door behind me, and I got stuck outside for an hour and a half, throwing tennis balls at the window, trying to wake her when she's got a sound machine on. It was an experience. So that was what my morning is. We're recording the podcast a little late today, but I think it's a funny story and a little microcosm of life. When things go wrong, how do you make the best of it? So here we are. Before we get started, subscribe on Apple, subscribe on Spotify, give us a positive review if you're a listener. Share it with your friends, the people who need this kind of information to put dating and relationships into better perspective and get more confidence and have more positivity about the pursuit of love. This is for them. Maybe not this episode, but in general, the Love You podcast is for them. A few weeks ago, I had a challenging conversation with a client. I'll get into the meat of it. And every week I'm on the phone and I got, not a huge crowd, 15 to 25 women generally are on our group coaching calls where everybody has an opportunity. Some people lurk, some people raise their hands, and I've got a really active client who brings really thoughtful, philosophical questions to me. And I've loved working with her, and she gave me a question which was very different than any question than I've had in 20 years. And while it was a relevant question, it was just an unusual one. She said, I was coddling women too much. And I was somewhat amused by that. I wasn't taken aback. I could take criticism within my own group. It doesn't sting too much. But she said I was coddling women too much and that they needed to hear the truth. I've been doing this online for 20 years. If you go and check out my blog, where in 2016 I had 12 million people come to my blog, the basic criticism of me was always the same. People the women on the far left would criticize me for being a 1950s patriarchal, misogynist mansplainer who wants women to smile and look pretty. And it was a complaint that kind of bounced off of me because it has no resemblance to the truth. And then there were the right-wing red pill guys who said that I was pumping up unattractive middle-aged women who had no value. Their only value is when they're under 25. And all American women have lost all traces of femininity, and that I was just a white knight telling them what they wanted to hear. Also bounced off of me because, if anything, I was right in between those two things. I consider myself a reality-based dating coach. I tell women at least what I perceive to be the truth, even if it's a cold, hard truth. And so I've usually been accused of tough love. So when I've got a client who's like, you've been coddling women, I am listening very closely. She says she lives in New York City. I'm not going to out her. I got lots of clients in New York City. So she lives in New York City, and she says that every woman she knows engages in what is known as hypergamy. And to be precise with my definition, because I didn't want to screw it up, I looked it up and AI gave me this definition. Hypergamy is a social science term that's about dating or marrying someone more successful or secure. Basically, women who want to date men who have more money, power, status. And this in turn gives her security, reputation, self-worth, identity, and perhaps a chance at the best gene pool. The problem with hypergamy as it exists in reality is that it does not necessarily provide for a great marriage, since all of those things, status, power, money, is completely decoupled from what it means to be a great husband and life partner. And so it was just interesting to have someone say, hey, you should talk about hypergamy more, about how women try to date up more and how unrealistic that is more, and smack people down into reality more, where if anything, again, I've been told I do that too much, and I'm trying to be more gentle about it. So there's this Venn diagram between there's what people need to hear and there's what people want to hear. And I'm always trying to thread that needle. I don't want to be anybody's tough love. I don't want to be anybody's dream killer. But because she brought this up, I'm going to take the opportunity to give you my thoughts on hypergamy, or dating up, as it is more colloquially known, and acknowledge my client's point of view, which is that if indeed every single woman, right, in, say, New York City, we'll use that as an example, is vying for someone who is young, fit, brilliant, sexy, charismatic, and a millionaire, we've got a math problem, right? Because the percentage of men, and there's more of them in New York City than probably anywhere else, but the number of men who are going to be young, cute, brilliant, sexy, charismatic millionaires, right? It's going to be a small percentage of men. If all the women, and I can't literally be all of the women, but all of my clients, upper middle class, educated, six-figure, smart, strong, successful women, if they're all vying for that guy or bust, we've got ourselves a math problem. And a lot of people are going to have to pivot on those dreams. And so, in short, it would be impossible mathematically. I'm not even talking about morally. I can understand why everybody's attracted to what everybody's attracted to. It would be impossible mathematically for everyone to date up. Couldn't be done. Think about it this way. What if men dated this way? Because I was one of those people who wanted to date up. Wasn't as concerned about the money piece, but I sure wanted someone who was younger and fitter and smarter and more creative and cooler and could hand me, interesting books to read and indie bands to listen to. And I definitely craved someone who brought more to the table than I did. And that was 10 years and 300 dates, because that's what I valued the most. So I share this thing about the wanting to get more. OkCupid studies show that people want to date 25% up. So it's not whether this is natural for people to want more. It's whether it's working, whether it's realistic, whether it's making you happy, whether it's helping you achieve your goal. So I would ask, if a guy like me says, that's what I'm attracted to, that's what I'm worth, that's what I deserve, would anybody be willing to tell me that by choosing my wife, I'm dating down because she likes, generic Dave Matthews Bands and watching Friends and Office reruns and isn't showing me cool, interesting stuff and isn't, we're not talking about philosophy. Would you tell me I'm dating down because I chose my wife? I sure hope not. I don't feel like I dated down, but I absolutely pivoted on what I valued the most. Right? So my contention is, if men can do this, so can women. It is not settling or failing or lowering your status to date someone who actually makes you happy. I am celebrating 17 years in marriage this fall. This is not a sham relationship I'm having for the internet. So I could assure you, I did not settle, and anybody who meets my wife knows I didn't settle. But I absolutely did pivot on what I thought I wanted, needed, deserved, what I was holding out for, right? And that is some form of hypergamy. So, in my experience, there's, I don't even call tiers of men, because it would almost imply that the top 1% of 1% is a higher tier. The language around it is bad. But if you know of a guy who is a Top Chef Supermodel Rhodes Scholar, we know that there's problems with that guy. If there's a guy who is a mega billionaire, we know there's problems with that guy. And it does not mean to traffic in attacks, but rather to point out stereotypes. Very few people reach the tippy top of anything without losing some touch or having some flaw. They become workaholics, they become narcissists, they're convinced that they can buy and sell people, that people should just bend to meet their will. So they're less likely to be compromisers, less likely to be sensitive, less likely to be emotional available, less likely to talk about feelings, less likely to be monogamous. I've definitely told the story before of a friend of mine who said I was the only person he could go to Las Vegas with, because all of his friends who take their private jets and go in the suites at the Wynn would get to Vegas and immediately say, "Where are the escorts?" And he said, "This is life in the top 1% of 1%. I haven't been there, but I've heard enough about it to say that may not be where you want to reside. Although I can understand why it's tempting to have someone provide such a lifestyle, to have such a person who's such a catch that they can provide a lifestyle. There's something undeniably appealing about it. And so if you had experience with men who are brilliant or gorgeous or rich, and you're listening to me, that didn't work. Ask yourself why that didn't work. What were his character flaws? Right? What were the character flaws of the people he was around? Right? Ultimately, relationships are a marathon. Right? They're about tolerance. They're about character. It's really unsexy stuff. And so no one's denying what you might find attractive if you engage in hypergamy. I'm in the 95th percentile. I want to date someone better than me. I did not come this far to settle. But go back to that math problem. Right? If you're in the 95th percentile, right off the bat, it means there's only 5% of men above you that you can date. We've eliminated everybody otherwise. And that's not necessarily accurate. How many men does that leave? In the 5% above you, who makes more than you, who's taller than you, fitter than you, etc., that leaves half of those men are not necessarily going to be interested in you, realistically. Right? And then the other half might say, I don't want to date the female version of myself. I want to date someone else. I might want to date a first grade teacher. I might want to date someone who's 12 years younger. And the guys who are in the top of the totem pole are probably going to have their options to do so as well. So that's why chasing that one thing, right? Why hypergamy is maybe natural for biological reasons, right? Regardless of sociological reasons, it may be natural, but it may not help people get what they want, right? So that's why in Love You, we talk about things that are unmentionable in other places, which is it's okay to start with a guy who is a 7 on paper compared to the 10s you may have dated before. That 7 in attraction, if he's funny and good in bed, that attraction can grow. But the important part is the compatibility piece. How do I feel with him? How does he treat me? Do I feel safe, heard, and understood? Does he exhibit character, kindness, consistency, communication, and commitment? Do I feel a real connection with him? And do I feel consistently connected with him? So that opens up the world from just the 1% of 1% above you, right? The person that everybody theoretically is interested in. And now we could date guys who are 7s in looks and guys who have college educations or maybe don't have college educations but are hardworking 6-figure earners who follow the news and get the joke and have opinions and are truly your equals. They just came at it in a different way. And the fact is most people are overlooking those people, right? We're swiping left on them because we have infinite choice. And so now we get on dating apps where we have so little information. All we have is a little bit to go on. It favors people who are younger and cuter and appear to be of a higher class. And so you now have so many people vying for the top tiny percent of men that we've almost forgotten the upper middle class of men that are being overlooked. The top 20% of men, the top 10% of men, everybody's vying for the top 1 to 5% of men. And so to me, that's an undervalued stock. To me, that's something that other people are failing to do. If you stop looking down on these guys as lesser than you, because they're not any more than my wife is lesser than me, maybe you could finally start to see that there's a guy who will see eye to eye with you and really be your person and be your partner in crime. And it might not look exactly the way you thought it was going to look. But hypergamy, while natural, is rarely an effective dating strategy. any more than I'm going to go on LinkedIn and try to find a job that pays me $1 million. It's not that it's impossible. It's not that it's never been done before. It's that you might be unemployed for a really long period of time while you hold out for this highly desirable thing and tell yourself that everything else is beneath you. I assure you it's not. So if you've listened to this and you hear some common sense wisdom, not tough love, just good reality-based dating coaching, and you would like to find a quality man who is a 10 in compatibility and is great in bed and is cute to look at, but he might be 2 inches shorter than your previous standard, or he might be 3 years older than your previous standard. If you're open to the possibility of that, right, and know that that's far, far better than being alone for the rest of your life. Far. Right? Says the guy who married a woman 3 years older. I am not speaking from some sort of pedestal. If that is in the cards for you and you want someone who really makes you feel safe, heard, and understood, my method of coaching, the thing that I do right now for my clients, is unlike anything you'll experience anywhere else. My job is to be the guy who shows you what it's like to be loved. All you have to do to get access to me is go to evanmarkkatz.com/now, fill out a short application, book a short phone call with me. We'll talk about the right fit for coaching. I've done a lot of things over the summer in terms of making it more accessible to more women. So if you've ever thought about it, this is the time. It's the fall, post-summer, people are back into it. I really look forward to talking to you. And don't forget, love is out there. It is waiting for you. All you have to do is persevere, believe, and do something different to get a different result. My name is Evan Mark Katz. This is the Love You Podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe on Apple, subscribe on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube. Click on the button to get notified when new content comes out. And if you enjoyed us, please share it with a friend. Leave us a positive review. It means the world to me. Thanks so much for your time. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.